Okay, I think we start. Good morning, everyone. My name is Omar Mohammed. I am communication advisor with UNESCO. Today we. Okay, I think we start. Good morning, everyone. My name is Omar Mohammed. I am. Today we have a very important topic. As Mosul is recovering or trying to recover its cultural heritage. But let me give you some notes before we start our topic of today. The recovery of Mosul through UNESCO is run through the initiative Revive the Spirit of Mosul, an initiative funded by multi-nations, the European Union, United Arab Emirates, and other countries. But one of the important initiatives beside the important heritage sites such as the Nuri Mosque, Sa'a Church, Al-Tahira, and other sites is actually the houses in Old Mosul. UNESCO with local partners is trying to restore the cultural heritage that is already occupied by inhabitants, not only cultural sites that might not be available or inhabited by others, which is the historical houses, including also, but not limited to, Ziyada House, which is a palace in Old Mosul, and the palace of the Mosul historian Suleiman Saib. This is a very important effort, the restoration of the historical houses, but also making them available to their inhabitants to come back and occupy them again, will keep their value grow even bigger in the future, and it will also help in the enlisting of Mosul on the World Heritage Site, especially the old part of the city of Mosul. Today, for our event, we have two distinguished speakers. The first is Ivan Erhel. He is a TV documentary film director and producer. He is a heritage activist who collaborates with the museums and scientific institutions. After he made his Treasures of Mesopotamia, where he follows an Iraqi writer trying to digitize the heritage endangered by ISIS, he decided to go further and coordinates Tech for Heritage, which is his own organization to help the Iraqis preserve their own heritage and to remind the world that Iraq is not just a conflict zone, but also the cradle of civilization. Our second speaker is Sarah Muhammad Kharoufa. She is consultant architect and academic in Mosul University since 1998. She graduated from also the same university from the Department of Architecture in 1997. She has a master's degree in theories of architecture and involved in documenting local architecture since 2018. She published two important books, Mosul City Doors, an anatomical study of the formal characteristics and doors of Mosul, and the second is Mosul City Architecture, Heritage, and Documentation. I have seen the two books. They are very important, and I advise our audience to obtain those books, especially the one on the doors of Mosul. Some technical notes before we start again. If you have questions, you can write it. You can see in the Q&A section, and then we will give our speakers the chance to answer your questions. Ivan, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for receiving me, Omar. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Ivan, and as Omar said, I did this film. We started in 2015, so it was really a tough situation. At the time, I've always often been asked why should I come to Iraq and stuff, but because when ISIS attacked the heritage, particularly when they destroyed the site of Nimrud and the Museum of Mosul, I felt like personally attacked. and I wonder what can I do? I mean, I think I really felt like the whole world was attacked at this moment, and I'm not a military, I'm not police, I'm not a politician. There was nothing I could do. I do films, so I was thinking of making a film, but what for? How could be like parasiting the war, or being somehow voyeur? I mean, to go and film people in pain is not a point for me. But I had this friend. He just bought a 3D scanner, and we were discussing, and he told me, oh, too bad. If I had been in Nimrud like half an hour before the bombing, this wouldn't have been lost forever. So I say, yalla, let's do it. Let's do this. Let's do this. So I went to Iraq with a friend, with two friends, with just a scanner, a 3D scanner, and and a camera, and then it became a big international co-production, and the movie is currently on the website of Arte. You can see it, but you need a VPN because it is geo-blocked. And it took us 6 years to complete the film. And in this 6 year, I came to get inside the Iraqi society and understand many things. And I focused on something that really amazed me, is how much the heritage became a cement of the Iraqi society. It is not shocking to say. It is not sorry, my camera went out. It is not shocking to say that Iraq is somehow a divided country, and but there was something that gathered all the Iraqi people together. It is the pride of being the descendant of the inventors of civilization. So at some point, when we got closer, at the beginning, we went only in the south of the country. The first trip was only in the south of the country. The country was at war, but the war didn't reach the south. And the more we came up north in the country, the more I felt the pain in the flesh of the people, and I was more and more wondering: is it fair to take care of what we call old stones when people are suffering in their body, in their families, many dead people, many people leaving their home, becoming from middle-class people to refugees, and that's something very, very, very painful. And I was wondering, is it fair to take care of the heritage when the bodies are suffering? And many people answered me that, but the first to answer me this metaphor was the current governor of Mosul, Luar Najib Manjaburi. He said to me, we are like a tree. We are like a tree. You can cut our branch or our leaves, and this is the people falling. But if you cut the roots, the tree will die. So yeah. He was not the only one to tell me that. I think I had the same story 3 times. So we are like a tree, and people dying are the leaves or the branches, but you cannot cut the roots of a country. And heritage is the roots of the country, and it is the cement of the Iraqi civilization. So So this I wanted to be in the film. I wanted this part to be in the film, but the channel, they wanted more like well-known French archaeologists, and there were none at the time. So I brought the French archaeologists to do, like the nice plans. But the Iraqi people, except from the main character, is mostly absent of the film. And so I was frustrated about that, and I kept in mind this idea, because we started with the 3D scanners, which is kind of expensive technique to make 3D models. And but the more I got experience on it, and the more I realized that a single phone with a camera is enough to make a nice 3D model. And so the point of Tech for Heritage is to teach the Iraqi people how to make 3D model and preserve their own heritage by their own techniques, and so that they can keep the data, because we are modelizing today with today's technique, but 3D is evolving like very, very quickly, and it's very, very possible that in a couple of years or in 5 years the techniques get even better. We can already get very good results, but it's important to keep the raw data as well as the 3D model. Also, the 3D model is a good way to catch the attention of non-specialist people. And I know many specialists of heritage, and all my respect, Sahar, but they have a little tendency to keep the heritage and the history for their studies. And I think that sharing this footage, this knowledge, is maybe as important as it is to capture it. So the Tech for Heritage is based on 3 principles, which are training, collecting, and sharing. So training. We are doing workshops in 5 of the main cities in Iraq, which are from south to north: Nasriya, Babel or Hilla, Baghdad, Mosul, and Suleimani. And these are 5 days intensive workshops. We already did 3 of them. Nasriya, Babel, and Mosul. And so at the end of the 5 days, trainees are not already professional, but they are professionalizing in this technique. And they are definitely able to make 3D models of sites, monuments, and objects. So this is training. Then we do collecting, like we did yesterday. We sent our trainees to digitize the doors of Mosul. And this is why Dr. Sahar participated with us, because before doing this, yes, this is one of the can put it full screen. I don't like to advertise Sketchfab. Before doing this digitizations, we wanted them to understand the value of the doors of the old town of Mosul, something we didn't. Something I discovered, and this has a symbolic architectural importance, and this is so typical of Mosul. So they, as you may guess, I am today in France, I love spending time in Iraq, but they did it on their own. So now they are autonomous, and all of the data belong not to me or Tech for Heritage or my partners. It belongs only to the Iraqi state. Our partners, by the way, are very important in this mission. Of course, it is a project funded by Creative Europe, which is from the Europe subside program from the European Commission. And I work with Carare, which is an association that gather all of the actors of digital heritage, as well as Doppel, which is a Portuguese company of 3D solutions, founded by former archaeologists. This is important. And of course, the University of Rome, La Sapienza. So this is collecting and sharing. Sharing is, again, another step. Of course, we share with internet. This camera is falling down. Can you see me? Yeah. We share on internet with posts and with post on social media. But we also plan to make an exhibition with holograms, 3D models, 3D printing, because you can print 3D objects. I got one here. You can print some 3D mod. You can print your 3D models. Maybe those of you that know about the heritage, they know what this is. This is cuneiform. Yes, and it is in plastic. It's not original. This is plastic, but it's different when you see it at the museum and when you hold it in your hands. And when you have stuff like this in plastic, you can hold it in your hands. And this is also the goal of our operation, is to close the distance between people and their heritage. Of course, everybody respects the heritage, but there is a difference between respect and fear. When you see an object like this in behind the glass in a museum, you cannot touch. You can just look. You have somehow some fear. But when you can see it and feel the power of your ancestor, then it's different. It's different, and we want to close the distance. And the same for the 3D model. Omar, you showed the 3D model for a second, and just right after you touched it, you started playing with it, zooming, looking for strange angles, unusual angles. And I think this is a way to bring to heritage people who don't go to museums. People who are on their phone, on Facebook, on Twitter, so they can click and look at interesting contents about themselves. So this is basically all. This is the idea I'm fighting for. I've been working on this project for 7 years, and it is currently in course, and I'm very happy about it. All our trainees are very, very happy about it also. And we have, in September, we have Baghdad workshops, and then everybody, some workshops, some cities are already in the collecting part. But after Baghdad, we are all in collecting part, and there will be a training, because this is something I want to say. Taking pictures, you can take pictures and make 3D models of it, but there are a few techniques that need to be learned to take picture the right way, so you can do a complete 3D model. On the 3D model you show, there is a cable, and the trainees, they didn't took the pictures behind the cable, so the cable is yes, there is a cable in the upper part, yeah, you can see the cable, and it makes something strange. Yes, you see this awful line. This is not Sahar. This, I'm sorry. This is not. This is not like accurate. But we can take it out. This was just made yesterday, but it has to be taken out so that the door reveals its own beauty. And while you will be talking, I will try to launch another digitization. Maybe I can show you better the process of making 3D models. And yes, so this is the idea I defend, and this is why I work. And actually, even if it's funded by European Union, I insist that Tech for Heritage is an Iraqi project for the benefits of the Iraqis.
Ivan, thank you so much. If I may ask, if we go back to the doors, how many doors are you aiming to digitize, and what will be the final product? How will people be able to access and see them?
Yesterday, the trainees, there were not many. I think they digitized like 10 doors, but I think we will end between 25 or 50, and they all will be online or on our new website. Yesterday we launched our new website. It's techforheritage.com with a 4 between tech and heritage, and they will be implemented on the website in a collection. We will have a collection of 3D models, but not only the doors. We have the doors, but we might have Nimrud. We have all sides. We have Ur, the ziggurat of Ur in the south, and this is also an interesting idea that people from the north and get interested in heritage from the south, and people in the south got interested in heritage from the north. This is also what is the sharing part. Sharing part is between Iraqis, then between Iraqis and the world.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Sahar, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for hosting this meeting. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Sahar Mohammed, and consultant architect. And this is what I'm focusing on, not on my academic side, really, because that was a duty, and this is a passion, my passion. I started documenting local architecture since 2018, after the liberation of Mosul, and see all the destruction that happened in the old city. I was actually furious because we as architects didn't have the knowledge, the complete knowledge of what we had there in the old city. It was all hidden behind doors and high walls, and we didn't know that we have that heritage, especially us, people who were born in the east side of the city and visit the old side just to go to the market and feel, and also have a very negative idea about the old city, because due to the economical situation and also political situation, this area used to inhabit low-income people, a very closed area. You can't enter the area with a camera, for example. When I entered there with a camera to document, I felt like I was an intruder. It was also for security reason. It was impossible for anyone there to go and document easily. You have to have a lot of approval and papers. When the liberation happens and all the beauty of the city revealed, and unfortunately it was destructed, and other people also start to steal some parts of what's left there and resell it, or they didn't know the value of what we had there. They also start to destruct what's left and rebuild new buildings on top of the rubbles, and they consider, just like Ivan said, only rubbles, only stones. So what I did, I worked with the first book. I worked very quickly with a lot of photographers, very respectful photographers, who start to document the old city on their own responsibility, because at that time the city was not safe for anyone to go in. So they have to risk their security and go there and take whatever photo they can take. to document whatever door, building, any architectural elements was there. And because the rebuilding that happened there was very quick, and it happens with by some organization or even for people, so they start to rebuild their houses quickly using concrete blocks and stuff like that. I had to do something very quick, and I had to focus on craftsmanship and the people who were doing this. That's why I did my first book. The first book contains 115 doorways, and I did that. I don't know if I can mirror my screen. Can I mirror my screen?
Yes, you can. If you'd like to share it, you can see the share
How
option.
can I?
If you can see the share option at the bottom.
At the bottom? I'm sorry.
Yes. Share screen.
I don't see it.
Can you see the green?
I see. Yeah,
yes.
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it. Okay. Share screen. Did I manage to share anything?
Not yet.
Sure. Just a second. Okay, you can see this is the first book that I had. The first book, you can see every door has a vertical section and horizontal section. I was talking to craftsmanship for anyone who wants to rebuild or reuse. And I classified the doorways from the easiest design to the most complicated designs. Not the same classification that I used in the second book, because I was really talking to engineers and craftsmanship and whoever wanted to reuse these designs. And the first book had 115 doorways. The second book continuously. Actually, it comes not only with doorways. The first book consists only doorway. The second book, because doorways was my entrance to document local heritage, the second book I use opening, including doorways, inner doors, windows, and also a lot of details. Also, the classification here is different. I'm now classifying doorways according to their designs, whether it's straight, semi-arc, rounded, semi-arc, pointed arc, as you can see. And each design, I put it in a chapter. You can see here, for example, of each chapter has over 50 or 70 model that I documented. And not just doorways, I documented, I separated the religious building doorways also in different chapter, and I did some study and comparison between them and came out with some conclusion. After I did the documenting of all doorways, I managed to conclude the most common design that they use of doorways and put it in like a diagram. After doorways, I start to document windows, then ironwork. After windows and ironwork, I start document ornaments, columns. I'm walking with you through the chapters. You see, the first door was a 300 and something paper. The second, the first book. The second book was 1,070 something paper. So it's a little bit complicated. I'm gonna just move forward. This is the inner doors. You can see immediately the difference in designs and the consistency of the ornament of the doors that separates between spaces inside the house and how different they are in designs from the doors that are used in doorways, the designs that are used in doorways. After that, we start with windows, from Rosoni windows, windows on top of the doorways, and regular windows, either they were in the front elevation or the elevation for overlooking the courtyard. After the windows and their designs, I start to study the cabinet, the wall cabinet, the recess that they have in the rooms, and the relationship between their designs and also the windows. And I also came up with a conclusion. After each chapter, we have some conclusions and also a recommendation for further studies. After that, I study the E1s and the designs of the E1s, whether the side of the E1s, the ceiling of the E1s. After that, the ornaments. Ornaments include also the ornament on top of the windows and ornaments of the mihrab, ornaments inside churches, a lot of ornament. Actually, the biggest chapter inside the book was the ornament chapter. It was very stressing, but it has a lot of varieties and designs, and it is a very important chapter. After I documented the ornament, I start with ironwork, whether doors, windows, railways. After that, I start with columns, from the pillars in the basements to the columns, and also with a comparison between the designs of three main functions of the columns that were found in Mosul house, whether they were pillars in the basement or the columns on the overlooking the courtyard, or columns that were used as an ornamental piece, and also do some comparison between them. After the columns, I did the keystone of the arc. They were used on top of the doorways or inside the house, and the designs of these keystones were magnificently beautiful, and we have a lot of varieties of designs, and some have statements, whether it's date, whether it's word or symbols, and some are just like organic designs. 99% of them organic. We didn't find like geometrical designs for these keystones. And after the keystones, the crown of the columns, and also this element, which is used, actually it was for, if it's like an outside the house, it's for expanding the plan of the house on the alley. But if it's inside the house, to carry a lighting fixture or for ornaments reason, ornament use, those are the crowns of columns with variety of designs. And of course, the ornament chapter. You know, when I look at what I did in the book, sometimes I don't know how did I manage to do that, because it needs a lot of dedication and some madness, actually, because you ignore your life completely and focus on this work to accomplish it. But I have a goal and a reason, and I have to do it. And I had to put it in the hands of public people, because this is a database for engineers. It's for this generation, future generation. When you do something like that, you don't really wait for the results directly. You wait, probably you'll see results like generation ahead. You only have to do what you have to do, and put it there in front of the public to see and to teach and study. It has to be in every library, actually, not because it's my book, but because it's something that gives you pride of what your culture had. And we didn't know that, and public people don't know that. And that's why they look at it with a very demeaning eye. They say that we don't have what's enough to consider as a heritage or a word, to put this city in word heritage. Or an icon for heritage in the world, in front of the world. You only hear news about destruction, wars. Do a simple search in Google, and Mosul doesn't give you any positive outcome from the news. You see here, for example, those are the ceiling for E1. even when I see it now, I always, whenever I see it, I keep admiring the design, the craftsmanship. And because I'm an engineer, I did the documentation because I want to sit or stand next to the craftsman. I want to understand, how did he start doing this? What kind of tools he had? What kind of freedom he had in his design? Does he have like pre-prepared samples? Does he do everything on site? I want to understand him because I must understand how to do that, to reuse it again and to provide to the people and to tell them that it's possible to be reused again. This is our culture. We have all the right to be proud of, and we have to push forward for study, exhibits, also support any side. Those are mihrabs. Anyone who wanna study and do it, and give them all the right resources for that. And also my documentation, just last thing I want to say, I didn't, at the beginning when I was arranging in a book, I didn't know how to arrange it in a book, because I said, if I put the final building, the final results, then I start to details. Maybe when you open the book, you see the bigger picture, and then you feel like dizzy and you don't want to do anymore or read anymore. So what I did is I start with an element, the simple element, the small element, and start to build from there. Study all the pieces, piece by piece, and rebuild them to reach the total building. So from the elements to the inner elevation overlooking the courts, to the final outside elevation, to the whole building. That's why I arrange it in the information in the book in this way. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sahar. This is really fabulous, fantastic what you have done. As you already,
thank you very much.
Doors are the face of every house, and they can tell, many times they can tell what's behind the doors, which is why people paid so much attention to the design of their doors. If I may ask, from the characteristics you mentioned, it's very important that especially now we are in the age of the climate change. You mentioned that there were many agricultural elements and plants were integrated in the design of the entrances and the facade of the houses. If you can elaborate more and tell us more about your findings and discoveries of these structures.
It depends on what elements are you talking about, because in ornament, I did analyze a lot of ornament in different places in the house. For example, there are ornaments at the top of the doorways. There are ornaments, the crown of the column. There are ornaments on windows. There are ornaments, the keystone. It depends on that. But basically, let me tell you, for example, most of the ornament that were used in doorways, they were mostly organic. Organic means using plants, simple, or sometimes the animals involved in the documentation, in the designing, I'm sorry. We saw lions, we saw ducks, we saw deers, and we also saw a unique symbol for a dragon. And this was like a very unique symbol that I didn't see anywhere else in doorway designs. And it was a religious building, actually. And it astonished me. And I did some assumption to it. But again, it has to be paired with a historian to study this building, to see what's the story behind the one who's buried there and why the dragon on the doorways of that building. Because it's not from our culture, actually. When you study doorways for religious building, the ornaments start to shift, actually. They were not just organic, but you see also geometrical ornaments that make you think, where there's some kind of order or some kind of I don't know, law that they follow. They have to use geometrical ornament in these doorways, and you see calligraphy also in these doorways. And you don't see that much in doorways for residential building, which is unique. Also, when you go to religious, for example, mosque, if you go to, you study an entrance for a mosque, you see the entrance of the mosque, the ornaments start from the frame of the doorway all the way up, then go down. So your eyes actually start to work from below, then up, then down. You don't have to focus all the way up. It's start from lower point, lower angle. When you enter the mosque, actually, you don't have an axis, moving axis. You have visual axis. You have to focus on Qibla wall, and there is no place inside this space better than anyone else, except, of course, for the front row. So your eye always look at a lower angle. You don't have to focus up. Even when you pray, when you ask something, it's not acceptable to raise your eye. So let's move forward to a church. When you study the doorway of a church, you see the doorways, you always see columns. Once you see columns, you're immediately like shifting your eyes, looking upward and focusing on the plate on top of the wall, on top of the doorway, with all the ornament, the information that were written there, the name of the building. So your eyes goes up. When you enter that building, of course, in church, you have the you have an axe. You have like, you have to walk through this path, reaching to the altar. Altar is the salvation point. So you have to always focus to the end of the path, upward. Okay, upward, the source of light, the source of salvation. That's why you see all the focus on the ornament, also on the ceiling, on top of the walls. Your eyes mostly look upward. So this is a very unique thing. And I was astonished. I assume that the architect then used this type of this typology to reflect the belief or the religion on the design. This is, as an architect, I assume that. But is it really? Is it? This is my assumption. I hope it is, but as an assumption during my documentation. Also, if you look, for example, for doorways for public people, resident, you see people were very proud to declare the political view that they support. You see political symbols on top of doors. You see a religious symbol on top of doors. You see dates, you see names. Compare that to our doorways right now. You don't have these information. Most of us actually hide behind our doorways. People back then, they were not just proud to declare what they believe in, what they follow, but they were very relieved to do that. There were no problems then. The community then, and I'm not talking about the near history. I'm not talking about all the destruction that happened, the economical situation that there. I'm talking about what was the city as at the beginning, really. The people, the community there were very well, very acceptable to each other, very freely. They can express themselves. There were no suppress, I don't know how to, they were exactly the opposite of our community right now. And also what I documented in the house, for example, if I received a photo for an architectural element and it was like half demolished, some pieces were missing, but on the other side were there, I'm not documenting destruction. I'm documenting the architect, the designs for that element as it was when it was built, because I'm providing a data for future generation and also this generation, architecture, builders, craftsmanship, to reuse in their designs. And I don't want for Mosul local architecture to be just on the west side of the city. This is our local architecture. So why we forget it completely when we move to the east side? Why our designs now in the city full of classic designs where they were not our classics designs, and we have all these sources and beautiful designs that we can use and make benefit of. So my purpose was to provide the data, whether people use it or not. This is not mine to discuss. All I had to do is I did my part, and I'm relieved with it.
This is really massive documentation, Sahar, and it's very important, not just for the future generation, but it's also important, and it's an eye to the past of Mosul to understand it even beyond just the historical narrative. I wonder if you know the book of Nicola Sayoufi, who documented the inscriptions on top of the doorways of the buildings in Mosul. It might also help in understanding and analyzing the reason behind many inscriptions. As you mentioned, doors are always in many ways are political expression.
Exactly.
You express something through the door, and this has always been the case in almost everywhere. But the uniqueness of the doors of Mosul is that it really explains, as you mentioned, the different layers of history of Mosul, because not all of them were built in the same time, and it can explain when and where and how these doors.
Yeah.
But one question I have, it's a technical question. Have you found any kind of unique dimensions of the doorways? Are they similar or they differ?
Just a little thing to complete the last sentence that you mentioned. Doors can always also be deceiving.
Yes.
If you see the bell house, for example, from the small, poor designs of the doorways, you won't have an assumption that you have a gem inside or behind that doorway. Yes. So they can also be deceiving. Because I was documenting from based on photography, so the scale, the proportions are very important to me, were very important to me. I'm not dealing with dimensions because the photographer who went there and took a photo, they don't have like a measuring tape. They are not sending me the real dimension, but they are taking photo. So what I did, I used the elements that were there inside the photos that can give me an idea of the dimension. For example, if there is a step, if there is a paper, if there is a ruler, if there is a person standing there, any element that I know earlier the dimension, or I can assume the dimension of that element, I can make a proportion between the scale of this door, the proportion of this door and this element. That's why the scale is very important for in my documentation. Some of the way I put a figure inside the doorway, or look at the design to see the connection between him as a figure and the design. So when he wants to reuse the design, he can rescale, copy and rescale one of the dimension, the opening of the doorway, for example, the width of the doorway, then all the design will be rescaled depending on this design, on this dimension. And I saw that when we, I attended the week before, the week before, the Heritage Festival was that was done in Beitna, and I saw the designs. Some of the arches that were in the book, they were actually around all the arena where the festival was done, and I was very happy because someone who is not, I believe he was a photographer, he wasn't an engineer, he managed to rescale the width of the, copy and rescale depending on one with it. So the whole design will rescale again, depending on that and maintaining the proportion of the elements. He did that and he managed to do that. And he's not even an engineer, he's a photographer. And I felt that I did something good and I helped, to provide the data for such an event and future use also, whether building or events. Some doors were very small, simple in design. Some were very complicated. Some were only for doorways, an opening only in the middle. Some have two windows aside. and they are from later period actually. But most of them, once you stand in front of the house, of course, some of the designs that you see right now in these days are not the real dimension, because the alley in front of the door will have like a lot of layers. So you see some doors are recessing the ground. So you can't have like the exact height or the design as it was when it was first built. So you do the assumption depending on similar designs that you document at the same area. The proportion were very important. The dimension, I can't give you the exact dimension, but once you as a user can determine the dimension of the width of the wall of the doorway, and then recopy the whole element and will rescale depending on that.
Thank you, Sahar. The reason I ask about the dimension is because it's connected to a next question that I would like to direct to Ivan. How can we, in case I believe Sahar, many of those doors were already probably demolished or destroyed. Not all of them have completely survived, I assume, because there was a part of the city that was completely demolished to the ground. But Ivan, from technological point of view, the feasibility of transforming all this documentation into an active plan to help restore the historical doors of Mosul. You are muted, Ivan, sorry.
Yeah, while Sahar was speaking, I wanted to build another 3D model so that you can understand how it works. The photography for this kind of modelizing is not really the same as it is it's not necessarily aesthetic photography. Maybe I can share my screen so you can guess, so you can see what I am talking about, if you agree.
Yes, you can use the sharing option.
Okay. No, the yellow door. Okay. So as you can see here, you can see these points are, and I can show you the photos. This models was made with just a few photos. Okay, maybe I will see. So this is a very sparse cloud. Then you have a dense cloud like this, and then you can put some texture on it. I believe this one door is maybe more modern. And I was working with a very old one, but what I want to show was this. You see this this blue square? These are the positions of the photos when it was taken, and maybe the other one is better. And this is what basically the software is doing. This is what the software is doing more accurately. It's guessing the position, guessing the position of the cameras. So you can rebuild a 3D model, and making a 3D model like this, then you can just push it by one click to a friend, and he can zoom on it and see very accurately how it was built. And to me, I mean, of course, people have to address to engineers and specialists, and this is what Sahar is doing, and she's doing it great. Maybe artists also can be inspired by her. Me, I want to touch like kids. I like to children's and people with no education, so that they can also have interest in this heritage. So I think for this 3D modeling is a good solution, because it is very easy to do, very cheap, and a little bit fun to do. Because I mean, I love your study drawing. But if you give your story, your drawings to a child, he will fill it with colors.
Yeah, which is good, by the way.
Which is good also. Yeah, which is good also. But yeah, I believe fun and knowledge should go together when it is about addressing the most people possible. And this is what I do. But I think it's not the solution. It's not the main solution. It is complementary with academic work.
Ivan, thank you so much. Sahar, in 2 words, if you would like to add more about your efforts to document the historical doors, and how do you see the future of your projects?
I would like to build on the word of Ivan. Social awareness is very important. We did this part also for engineers, craftsmen, people with interests, historians, academics to study, analyze, and stuff like that. But raising future local awareness is very important. We have to start with kids also, because if you ask any child now today, ask him to draw a house, he will draw immediately the pointed ceiling. We call it Jamalon, okay, and which is not in our culture actually, but this is what he sees on TV and stories that he buy and read. So maybe if we create stories and push these drawings inside these stories, for example, an adventure for a child to do inside his house, a hiding seek game where he can hide in a wall cabinet inside an old room, for example, and we push a drawing for a wall cabinet, sitting around the grandparents hearing their stories, and we can push a drawing there for grandparents sitting in E1, for example, and reading these stories. Or looking at the alley from a narrow window, and we can push this drawing for a window from front of the house inside the story. We have to deal with the awareness of the children, because we can't every time where the city go through a crisis, we can't always start from a strong ground to start from, but it has to be intense. You don't have to work so hard for it. It has to be very spontaneous. It has to come from self-knowledge, from local awareness for people to grow, to rebuild, to reuse, and to respect their heritage. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sahar. Ivan, in 1 minute, if you would like to add, because what you mentioned is very important, how we can transform all this documentation that Sahar has done, and many others have worked on the documentation of the cultural heritage in Mosul. How can we bring it back to make it relevant to the population who have already endured the horrors of the destruction of the war? How can we make it more relevant in their daily life?
In the daily life, I would say maybe just by using by using it. As I said, 3D is very easy to do, and can be done by pretty much anybody. I think when we are working on actual material like doors, and many of them are damaged or destroyed, and our job as Tech for Heritage is not to bring it as it was originally. So I think this kind of 3D is a good base on which you can add more things. And for example, when we digitized Nimrud, it was already bombed. So nearly nothing was left of the beauty of this palace before. But this 3D model is a good base on which you can put what historian will reconstitute from its original beauty. That the rooms are still in place.
Ivan and Sahar, once again, thank you so much for your time, but also congratulations on your efforts, both of you. Sahar, it's fascinating, and I do have a suggestion, and I hope that you will consider it. I do believe your book must or needs to be also put in English. It's one way to promote the cultural heritage of Mosul, and it will help definitely. I would like to also show you a very important book which has similar efforts to what you have done, but it's mostly focused on the inscriptions of the Syriac inscriptions in Iraq in general, but also in Mosul, and many of those ornaments and inscriptions actually have been documented. You may also benefit from this book. We have a question. Yes, Tahani. Yes, you may ask your question. Okay. So I think it's also important to have the book published in English, so it can get an international attention. Ivan, I would love to see the development of your work. I am so sorry we haven't seen your question, but I will ask it if you can put it here.
I think her microphone is off, muted.
Because I don't follow the YouTube chat, so if you can, Aline, if you can put your question here, please. Oh, dozens of questions, yes.
Okay, hi, thank you, Omar. Thank you both, Mr. Errol and Ms. Yaya, for your research. It's very interesting. I have a question regarding other uses of the results of your projects. You've mentioned educational uses, but maybe we can think also of cultural and artistic uses. So I wonder if you consider publishing it under any specific license, or if it would be available for also creative use or maybe artistic use. Thank you.
Thank you, Aline. Sahar, the question is to you.
I would love to. I would love to, but inshallah, I will work on this. And I do support the publishing for artistic use.
Yes, I think you should definitely translate your book, and I will take 2.
Yes.
Inshallah.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time now. Thank you again for your efforts, for your time, and yeah, I wish you success. And yeah, I think this is it's the first time I see really not to say real efforts, because there were also many efforts in Mosul, but it's the first time that I see practical type of documentation that can actually be implemented and help a city recover from destruction. So thank you again for your time, and to all our audience, those who participated here and on